Now, what's the next move for Unique now that everybody can finally stop saying Unique is Breeze? We got our introduction, which, in my opinion, I really liked. It seemed like a great way to introduce Breeze, in my opinion. Nothing too over the top. A brief introduction to Kanan and a brief introduction from Snaps and Pop in terms of how Breeze is a visionary, a scholar, and someone who also has a bright mind. So I'm glad that we can finally put the Unique is Breeze theories to bed, but that is also going to form part of this breakdown. We're going to be talking about the trio of Unique, Breeze and Kanan, a new alliance that we might see in Season 5 thanks to Snaps and Pop. How would the alliance work? What would it look like? And at the conclusion of Season 5, where might it lead? That's going to be part 2 of this breakdown. Part 1. We're going to take a look at Unique's next move in terms of hitting Rock's organisation, some interesting conversations he might have with Rock, and also Lou taking Panessa hostage. That concludes today's breakdown agenda. With that being said, let's start with the war with Rock, where I do actually want to start with the Italians. Now, I do think we have to start with the Italians because of their influence, where they sit on the chessboard, what was revealed in episode 10, and the huge betrayal from Phil Russo. Towards the end of 4x10, we saw Unique meeting Phil Russo because he wanted the go-ahead to finally hit Rock and her organisation in Queens. Earlier in Season 4, when Unique gained the support of Phil Russo, Phil refused to allow him to attack Queens because doing so would have brought Stefano into direct conflict. At the time, we believed it was as a result of tension between the two Italian mob leaders. Little did we know, these Italians have been playing the Thomases and Unique the entire time. What a surprise! Who would have thought that the Italians could never be trusted? It was revealed that Phil Russo was actually the one who called the hit on Sal Boselli to take his position. And when Stefano threatened to make that public within his organisation, Phil Russo took a stab at Stefano, but missed. That was an important takeaway from episode 10. Stefano isn't dead, so that's something we do have to remember when it comes to the grand scheme of things in this war. That's also why Phil looked kind of defeated toward the end. He knows he messed up. Don't miss the opportunity to confront one of the Italian gangsters. And that's why he gave Unique permission to go on the offensive, because it's about to be no holds barred. Anyway, when Stefano eventually returns, if he returns, which I personally think he will because I don't think he's dead, he's going to want revenge. So it's going to get really messy between the Italians from both Stefano's and Phil Russo's ends. Phil just looks like a guy who knows time is ticking. He gave Unique permission to attack Queens because he has nothing more to lose. However, at this moment in time, Stefano has already cut off the Thomases. He had no interest in them at all. But maybe that'll change come Season 5 because of Phil's betrayal. Maybe Stefano will re-evaluate his relationship with the Thomases if he wants to take aim at Phil Russo and the Italians in New Jersey. As a result of the fact that, in his words, they adore using these small creatures for their proxy wars. Additionally, he has a soft spot for Rock. If any of you have noticed, the way he has spoken about her indicates that he definitely has a crush on her. However, there are big trust issues here. Marvin even recently mentioned to Rock that they needed to take Stefano on themselves. Stefano has attempted to play both Marvin and Rock, as we have seen. So if they are to get back into bed with the Italians, they do need to be very careful. Definitely something to keep in mind in the grand scheme of this war between New York and New Jersey. The Italians will definitely have a part to play. Now with Unique, we saw him attacking Rock's organisation thanks to Eton. He put the final nail in the coffin for Rock's transportation. He then started to light up the Chinese restaurants, which I do think were useless anyway. Erin already told Rock their business partnership was done, but Unique wasn't to know, and it still hurts Rock. She's got all this product coming through from Hafiz and the Afghans. She made big promises to Hafiz earlier in the season, where he warned that the bloodiest wars are fought over territory. That was a foreshadowing of what was eventually coming Rock's way toward the end of Season 4. She's got all this product coming through from Hafiz and the Afghans. She made big promises to Hafiz earlier in the season, where he warned that the bloodiest wars are fought over territory. That was a foreshadowing of what was eventually coming Rock's way toward the end of season 4. Now that she's got all this product from Hafiz and the Afghans but no infrastructure or transportation to move it, her business is a mess. And they're also facing gunfire from every direction. We saw Marvin coming under heavy gunfire toward the end of episode 10, and Unique and Abar's guys from Trenton were still out in Queens. They wanted all the smoke. Who knows whether they took it to Rock's house or where they went after hitting Marvin? We'll only get that answer in episode 501. However, Rock did also make her move, which I do think will calm the situation down in the short term. She had Lou watching Panessa's mother, which eventually led him straight to Panessa and Jerome. He grabbed both, and now they have Unique's biggest weaknesses held hostage. That is something they can use to defuse the situation at the beginning of season 5. Rock mentioned if Unique's targeting Kanan, then family is fair game. Although I'd hope Rock and Lou don't do anything to Panessa and Jerome, they've just been caught up in this war between Unique and Rock, which started with Unique getting the wrong end of the stick. Let's remember all of this started because of Ronnie back in season 3, and also Unique not being in the right state of mind. He still believes Rock had something to do with setting him up with Ronnie in episode 305. Whether he ever comes around to believing she didn't, who knows? I do think there will be a couple of conversations between Unique and Rock in season 5, especially when she reveals she's got Panessa and Jerome. That will definitely diffuse the situation in the short term. But there's also the small matter of Rock's pregnancy and abortion. Let's not forget, Unique was the one who got Rock pregnant, and I do think that might come up again in season 5. Patina Miller may have hinted at it in one of her interviews, so it's something worth keeping in mind. Overall, in terms of this war with Unique, I do think because Lou and Rock have Panessa and Jerome, they kind of have the upper hand, no matter how much noise Unique is making in Queens. Unique will have to step down once he learns that Rock has Panessa and Jerome, but the beef won't end there, that's for sure. A lot of bodies will fall, a lot of chess games will be played, mind games, and people will be looking at the situation thinking they can profit from the chaos. Chaos creates opportunity, and that brings me to how Snaps and Pop are probably seeing it exactly that way. An opportunity to bring 2 or 3 characters together in an unlikely alliance: Unique, Kanan, and Breeze. During their conversation, Snaps mentioned teaming up with Unique. He said it's the ideal arrangement. They have their own connect and transportation. When they say they have their own connect, I'm not sure who exactly they are referring to, but I'm sure they have connections somewhere. These guys are experienced in the game. They have a lot of resources, connections, and alliances. They're well patterned when it comes to every part of the game. That's why they're in the position they're in. Snaps mentioned if they put Kanan with Unique and introduce him to his nephew, together they can corner the market. That's their game. They want a bigger piece of the pie. The cash they're making from Kanan right now is good, but imagine teaming up with Unique and the soldiers from Trenton, add their nephew Breeze. Imagine the damage they could cause, how much money they could make, how big their empire could be. And if you're putting Kanan, Breeze, and Unique together, it'll fill Snaps and Pop's pockets even more. That's something I think we should look forward to in season 5. A potential alliance between Unique, Kanan, and Breeze. We've already seen Unique and Kanan meet back in episode 409, where Unique was impressed with Kanan. He stood his ground when they talked about Crystal, and he didn't hesitate to tell Unique he was the one who checked Ronnie, and would do it again. Ironically, in 305, Ronnie told Unique, "Nobody checks me." Well, Kanan did. Checkmate. Unique liked Kanan's growth. He sees the possibility. He knows he can make money. And he knows that bringing Kanan on board would mess with Rock. I do think there will be an alliance. Snaps and Pop have the connect and transportation. Unique's got the soldiers. Now they can expand through Kanan and Breeze. Everyone benefits. But what have we learned about the power world? There will always be betrayal and backstabbing. These two guys, Breeze and Kanan, are young, ambitious and raw. That's why Snaps and Pop were mentoring Kanan in Season 4. They saw his potential. But still, he and Breeze are hungry to get to the top. And how do you get to the top when someone's already sitting in that seat? You take them out. Just like Kanan said back in Season 2 of Power, why wouldn't Roller want to take out the boss? Same stuff you did to Breeze. If anyone's in the way of your future, they've got to go. Eventually, I see a scenario where Kanan and Breeze make a play on Unique. Both will get some big scalps. And I do think there's only one way it ends for Unique. I said in my Marvin character breakdown that Marvin probably has to die to unleash Duke. But for Unique, I'm not asking. I believe Unique's story ends in death. He has always aspired to rule queens, but we know eventually Kanan and Breeze will take over. Therefore, consider where Unique in Power, Origins, is located. Where are Pop and Snaps, particularly in light of their betrayal of Fame and Crystal? In the event that Unique works with Kanan and Breeze in Season 5, they will always be second and third to him. And we know that won't last. Eventually, Kanan or Breeze will get that big scalp. It's coming. The chessboard in Season 5 will be even more dangerous than in Season 4. Extra blood, more death, big scalps like Snaps, Pop and Unique, betrayal, manipulation, and twisting the truth. And the wild part is, we still don't know what Breeze is really capable of. We've only had a brief intro, but one thing's for sure, Breeze will have a major role in taking queens. Let's not forget, he's Snaps and Pop's nephew, and we all know where that story's heading.